again to the K&Q podcast. I'm your host, Akwana Kompela, and this is the power of conversation. Please do remember to like, follow, and share us on our various social media pages, which are Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. We also have a YouTube page. It is the K&Q Digital Radio and Podcast. Please do subscribe to it and watch our edited and pre-recorded versions on that platform. Now remember, we are still in Youth Month. We are still in the running theme of the descendants of 76. And yeah, so that tonight we will be discussing, or dissecting rather, the destigmatization and defining what mental health is and what mental illnesses are as well, and how it affects the youth in general, because, like I said, it's still Youth Month. And as I said, the power of conversation joining us tonight is none other than Dr. Mampuya, and my presenter on my right, Makay, Miss Handsome Dog Gavana. You can take it away.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. This is a very sensitive topic, and I know we as the youth, we want to hear about the symptoms of mental illness, mental health. We just hear these things sometimes, and you don't understand what is the difference. But before we get into it, we want to know more about Dr. Mampuya on my right side. Good evening, Doc.
Good evening.
Are you fine?
Great.
No, we are great. Please tell us the background. Who are you, Doc? What do you do?
Thank you for hosting me. I'm Ferdinand Mampuya. I'm a medical doctor. So I went to study medicine. I finished in 2001 in a university called Kinshasa, that is far in the DR Congo.
Oh, okay.
But I did a postgraduate study in family medicine.
Okay.
In 2015, which is a specialty actually. It's a new specialty in South Africa, at the University of Free State.
Okay.
Yeah, but beside that, I've got some other specialties. I've got a diploma in obstetrics, got that in 2009, and I also have a diploma in occupational health.
Good.
Where in the University of Pretoria. So that's in summary the person you are hosting tonight.
Your two doctors are here, gents.
Yeah.
Doctors are here.
Thank you for
walk
joining
through
us
the
tonight.
stage.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us and for making time to sit with us. Like we mentioned earlier on, that tonight's topic is about the destigmatization of mental illnesses and mental health, but also the defining of it.
Yeah.
So I really hope Doc can really give us some clarity, some insight
Yeah.
on how do we define it, mental health versus mental illnesses. And also the destigmatization will come from our conversation, I guess.
Exactly. Now, to start in the point, people don't make a difference between health and sickness. What is health? According to the WHO, it's a state of well-being, mentally, physically, morally. So it's not only body, but it takes mind, body, and spirit in one. That is health.
Okay.
And mental health, it's part of health. It's a state where a person is on a state of well-being, okay, meaning that he can cope with all the daily stresses of life. He can cope with stress of work,
Okay.
of schools. He can actually cope with what life can throw on his face. As soon as he's able to contribute to a society, that is, all these elements are part of the mental wellness.
Okay.
Now, mental sickness, it's when you lose that ability to cope with what is coming toward your way. And there are different types of mental illness or sickness.
Doc, can you go into the types? Can you go into, because I read somewhere that there are 4 types. So I don't know if it's Really 4 times because we use the
Yeah,
time.
I read somewhere it's like 7.
I go.
Right, so yeah, like we really need, like I said, we need like
Clarity on
certainty
this.
and
Which one did
categorization.
you learn? Which one did you learn?
There is personality disorder.
Okay.
There
Okay.
is anxiety.
Okay.
There is schizophrenia.
Okay.
And then there's
What about the mood disorder? They say the mood
Depression.
disorder is depression and anxiety.
Yeah.
Where I read, and then there was personality disorder, like you said,
Yeah.
and then I also read one. There's another one. I forgot.
Okay. Let's start. Okay. Let me refer to you on a study done in Pretoria in 2021
Okay.
by UNICEF.
Okay.
UNICEF had to question youth because we are in a youth month.
Yes.
So we should
Yes.
include youth.
Definitely.
UNICEF had to do a research asking youth questions about mental health and mental sickness. And about 1,700 people answered that question. Youth, most of them. And I think the mean age was around 24, 25 years old.
Okay.
Now, what the finding was on that research is 65% of the youth knew about mental sickness. 65%.
Yes.
They knew some, so they had a sort of idea
of what it is
of
about.
what it is about. Okay? That's fantastic. 20% of them didn't know where to seek help.
Wow.
And 18% knew where to seek help, but they were afraid what the other people will say.
Yeah.
Now,
Stigma, ne?
yeah, that's the stigma. That's
Stigma.
the stigma we are
Stigma.
speaking about. Now, if we can put it in that way, you understand? Mental health, it's a huge, it has got a lot of subsection. If we start getting into one by one tonight, we will not finish.
Yeah, you're right.
So what we can cover is what were the most common one and what
Yes.
we found most
Yes.
in youth. In the study I mentioned, depression was on top of the list
Yeah.
of what most of the patients were aware about, and anxiety.
Yeah.
Now we know that depression is part of the mood disorder, depression and anxiety.
Anxiety.
And they separate even them nowadays. According to the Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Mental Health, the DSM-5, there are different classifications now for the mental health. You will see what used to be together are now separated.
Why is it that
No, because every day
we
the
learn
science-
something
yeah,
new?
we learn something new.
Yeah, it's
Things
like
are
a-
evolving.
Yeah.
research.
Yeah, things are evolving.
Can we maybe touch on the most prominent one?
Yes,
Or the
so
most
we can,
evident one?
we
The
can,
suffer depression.
yes, we can cover some, we can give symptoms of depression. We can talk about anxiety. It
Okay.
was also one of the common one. We can cover bipolar,
Okay.
bipolar mood disorder. You will see they call it bipolar mood disorder. Now the funny thing with bipolar is there is a mood, there is a depression inside there. Okay. And we can also say something about schizophrenia
Okay.
if we've got some time.
Okay.
We've got some time.
Yeah, okay, so, but before we, like, I was hoping I would ask this question a bit later on in the segment. So, about 2 weeks ago, we had somebody trained in the field of psychology.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, as a medical doctor, you are trained in the field of psychiatry.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, how do we make, like, okay, but she made the distinction about, like, you know, how these things occur, and she made her analysis about how these things can occur, what could lead to, what is a factor that could lead to depression, all of those things. But the one thing that I'm really interested in is from a psychiatric point of view, how do we manage it? How do we treat it? Like, where do we seek help? Of course, you are one of those people, but, you know, just to give us like a clinical answer on that as well.
Now to specify something, I'm not a psychiatrist. It is a specialty on its own.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
I'm a family physician. Now,
Alright.
family physician, many people don't understand that. I will not talk about it tonight, okay? Otherwise it's just time. But how do you manage mental issue. It is, I can say, it's not a one-person kind of management. It's always encompass a team. A psychiatrist need to be involved, psychologists need to be involved, social worker, and family.
Okay.
Oh.
So, gone are the days where a mental issue or mental problem must only be treated by the psychiatrist. Because if a psychiatrist who is a doctor, who is a medical doctor who went to do medical school, he did 6 years of undergrad and 5 years of specialty, he finishes with the patient will go home, will go back home. Now the care must continue.
Yes,
So
definitely.
he needs a support from his family, from the community where he's living, and if there are social workers in the environment where he's coming from, the support must also come from there. Social worker will communicate with the family to support the plan put in place by the psychiatrist so that the patient doesn't feel isolated. Why are people feeling rejected or are afraid of disclosing their mental illnesses? Because we as a community are still treating it as it's different.
I saw on the internet that there's still stigma around it, né? And there are some words that have been abolished from being used. For instance, when someone is diagnosed with a mental illness, some people will still say, "You are mad, you are nuts, he's crazy, you know." Those are.
That is very true. Yesterday, not far from yesterday, I had in my office a patient, a young person. He's about 18 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, here in Briska. It's not somewhere far.
Oh, but.
Came to see me with some other condition and mentioned his mental issue, just like, by the way, it's a sensitive issue. And I said, why are you making it sound sensitive, as if I'm not aware of that? You see, he came and he had some element in his body, but he also had some issue, mental issue he wanted to mention, and he mentioned it, by the way, I also need those other pills because it's a sensitive issue. It's a man, and it's proven now, female can come and disclose to you that they are feeling depressed.
Yeah.
And men seems to be feeling weak.
Yeah, I think that's not even just on the internet. You don't need to go onto the internet. You'll find that happens like around us, like Doc just mentioned.
Yeah.
There's a patient like in prison, and I was about to ask whether like people seek out help even in our environments, because I know of a lot of youths that may be suffering from these things, but because of the stigma in our environments, you don't even need to go. You'll hear it from your neighbor or the guy that lives down the street that, oh no, he's just gone mad, don't know what, and it kind of makes you feel withdrawn to talk about it, because it's out there and it's being treated like any other, or not like any other, but they are different. It's treated very different. I know there are some physical illnesses that people also have an issue with when it comes to there's a stigmatization, like let's say for instance around HIV, right? And people don't even want to talk about that, and it's not even treated in the same way as how
mental illness.
Mental illness is not even treated in the same way
That's what I'm saying.
as that, because people just don't talk about how they're feeling, not easily, especially men, especially African men. I think disproportionately so.
Yes, that is true. That is what you are saying is actually true, and we do see it a lot, and we do encourage people to come forward and express themselves. Let's say depression. Okay? Let's start by depression. How do you know you are depressed?
Symptoms, though.
Yes.
What are the symptoms?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Symptoms like sleeping too much all the day, losing appetite or overeating, lacking all ambition, feeling like worthless, having thoughts of killing self constantly. Those are symptoms of depression. Things you used to enjoy doing, you don't enjoy doing them anymore.
So when it comes to depression, the one thing that I was always interested about is the treatment of depression. A lot of people have heard they go to the doctor and then they put on antidepressants. What is the success rate of antidepressants, or what are the conditions that you need to be in to be able to be put on antidepressants again?
Firstly, you must be diagnosed by a doctor. I always advise people, maybe I didn't give a disclaimer when I started, whatever we are discussing is not a medical advice. So people at home must not start treating themselves or diagnosing themselves. If they need help, they must seek help from a professional. Yes. They must go and consult. Whatever we are discussing will be general term. It will not be specific to anyone.
Yes.
So that is very clear, because we know now with technology, people have got tendency to trust more technology than their own doctors or nurses.
Definitely.
It is very crucial to go and seek help if you don't feel well. Now, in coming to your question in terms of the treatment and the success rate, there is a good success rate in treating depression. It depends on when the person seeks help and how the person is managed.
Okay.
Many factors must be taken into account. I always tell my patient before starting them on any antidepressant that although we are prescribing medication to you, but you also should participate. People think sometimes medication will take away everything, and they don't do effort from their side.
Oh, okay.
So the success rate depends on the patient who is taking the medication, how committed he is or she is, and how open the person is. Because after seeing the doctor can suggest you to share your information to a family member, the one you trust.
Support system, to get support system.
So that there is a support system. Support system is very crucial. If you feel you are not supported when you are on your lows, then even if you are taking treatment, to succeed on that treatment can be challenging.
What about the side effects, Doc? Does this pills have any side effect?
You should be worried about?
Yeah, that people should be worried about.
Every pills have got side effects.
You
see, medication, all the medication have got side effects. And we discuss those side effects with patients.
Okay, so they vary from patient to patient?
No, they are common side effects in medication. Every one of them have got side effects. And especially if you mix them with what was not prescribed by the doctor.
Alcohol, for instance.
Alcohol, for instance, can potentiate one medication. When I say potentiate, meaning that making the medication stronger than it's supposed to be. Alcohol can also reduce the efficacy of medication. It can inhibit the efficacy of medication in the body because they compete in the liver of the patient. Most of these medications are metabolized in the liver.
Yeah, because, and especially when it comes to psychotic drugs, for instance, I can imagine how horrible that could end out for a patient who mixes it with alcohol, now that you've mentioned it. But I also this topic is such a
broad topic,
and we'll talk the whole time. But I just want to talk. Doc, you mentioned earlier on you have a postgraduate diploma in obstetrics. Obstetrics. I don't know how to say that kind of college. I don't know how to use that, but there is something that I heard or read about. It's postpartum, yes, depression. Right. So how does that happen? How does a patient, you just go in, you're pregnant, afterwards, after the pregnancy, I would imagine that
There's
should be...
also pre,
Right?
before.
Okay, I didn't know, you see, I didn't know that.
There's pre and there's post.
There is pre, there is peri, there is postpartum depression. So a pregnant woman who is term can actually have depression before that, before delivery, during labor, after that. Postpartum when it comes after delivery. And it is very, very common, very frequent. I don't know the exact prevalence actually now, but it's very common. And what happens is a lady delivers, and then all of a sudden she is sudden. Delivery is supposed to be a joyful moment.
Yes,
because
that's
the baby, but that person become down. She'll start crying. She'll feel like something. She will not be able to raise the child.
To what extent does this happen? Because I've read some of the women even neglect their babies. Is it normal?
It's not normal.
It's common.
It's a sickness. It's common. And
No.
it's treatable. It's treatable, and there is a huge success rate in terms of antidepressant.
Okay.
And the other thing that I wanted to know is what triggers that? Is it an environmental influence, or is it physical?
No. In terms of depression, there is one thing one can remember. There is a genetic component. The family history of depression, chances are you will have depression. Social issue around you can lead you to depression. But the genetics plays a huge role. You will see that they will tell you that family, they all have depression.
Oh, but
Nice.
So it goes in the gene.
So then that means that there's it's not curable, it's just treatable.
In those situations where the genetics plays a role, it's treatable. But in general, for depression can happen to anyone. We can get
anyone
depressed.
can get
And from
mental
time to
illness,
time, everyone can get mental illness. But if it just happened for some certain circumstances, it can be cured. It doesn't mean that if you are depressed, you will remain depressed forever.
Okay.
So you will have treatment and you get better, you get off the pills.
Yeah.
And many of the people were depressed before, they don't need the pills anymore.
Okay.
Okay, that's good.
It also
That's
like it's
very
what
positive.
Dr. Mampuya said. It goes with your environment, because you need the support system to keep it going on.
Yeah.
So I think that's why some people get off of it, because of the support system after receiving the treatment.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that is why it is needed. When we treat, we always advise
Support.
Yes, support.
So it's basically just like, let's say for instance I go to the doctor for flu, I never walk out there with a prescription that only has one thing on it, right? Like there's always like something else that I also need to take to make sure that, whatever that it is I'm taking can do its work, or your body can respond to
function,
it effectively. Am I making a right analysis? Or
you are, because you don't need only the doctor, like you said. You need your family, you need the psychologist, you need a lot of people to help you fight.
To assist you
Yes.
go through the phase you are going through. But those antidepressants, remember, they are chemicals which are acting on your brains. There are some neuroreceptor we've got in our brains, which actually are stimulated by the medication we are giving. And it's proven that if the level of serotonin is very low in somebody, for instance, you will have this type of depression. If it is a noradrenaline which is lacking, it will have this type of mental illness.
Okay.
That is why the medication they give, some of them will go and inhibit the serotonin, some of them will go and stimulate the noradrenaline, and all
So there are different types of levels of depression.
Yes, there are different types of mental illnesses.
Okay.
That is why even in the depression, we've got different classes of
Depression.
medication
Okay.
Yeah.
Medication.
which are
Yeah.
used.
And now that you mentioned serotonin, I know that, I don't know if this is scientific, what I'm going to say, but I've read, these did you knows that a simple hug can also trigger or influence the level of serotonin in a person's body. And as an act of kindness or a touch, a kiss, for instance. I think
That is possible.
Yeah.
That is possible. These are things you can secrete. You know that if you go outside and run, it
Yeah,
releases
yeah,
your dopamine.
yes.
The feel good hormones. You feel good.
Yeah.
So those are gestures you can do to boost your.
Also, what people also like to talk about, besides now depression, is anxiety.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's also really common for people to say, you know what, I'm anxious. What triggers the anxiety? What are the symptoms?
What is anxiety?
And
First,
what
let's
is
start there.
anxiety? Let's start there.
Let's start by saying anxiety can happen to anyone.
Okay.
It's a fear of something happening. That's anxiety. Now, if it's become excessive, overboard, you can't live, you are worried that a doom is about to happen. That's become a sickness.
Yeah,
We all become anxious a little bit. If you want to write an exam,
Okay.
you are anxious.
Yeah.
If you have to go for an interview, you are anxious. When you told me, oh, Thursday, come, are you available? I was like, what is this? Anxious.
You were anxious,
We all,
yeah.
it can happen to all of us. If you receive a call, you did a medical test, you know you are fine, but
You
you
just
went to
become
see a doctor
anxious,
and then
yeah.
they call you, they said, your blood result is out. You are worried.
Yeah,
We all
yeah.
have that. But it's not for that reason that we are sick.
Okay.
It's become a sickness if the worry is
Too
overboard,
much.
too much, excessive. Now that is why in anxiety, the person who is anxious will be having palpitation. You will be feeling his heart. Do you feel your heart when you are there? You can't feel your heart. Do you know that you are breathing?
No.
Yeah. You see,
You don't know.
You don't know.
Yeah, it happens in military,
You see, you don't know that you
Yeah.
are breathing, you don't know that your heart is beating,
Yeah.
but it is beating. The moment you start feeling it beating fast, palpitation, it's one of the symptoms of anxiety. You are worried about something to happen, and your mind can't get away of that thing happening, bothering you too much. It can take away your sleep because you are worried.
What about those anxiety attacks? Because you hear someone say, I got an anxiety. What happens throughout that moment of anxiety attack?
The anxiety attack, actually, the theory behind it is a cascade of events where the adrenalines and stuff are pumped out into your body.
Okay,
They
Doc.
collapse. Most of them you see had an anxiety attack, he collapsed. He didn't die, he just fall down because the palpitation, he could not breathe. He's hyperventilating, so he's breathing fast. Instead of eliminating the CO2 into his body, he's retaining it. He's creating acidosis in his body, and then he will collapse because the brain will not have enough oxygen, and then collapse. Those are the effects which happen in anxiety attack. The worry is so high, you hyperventilate, you breathe fast. By breathing fast, you forget that you don't exchange oxygen to CO2. You maintain all the CO2, the carbon inside your lungs. The poor exchange happens there, and the blood which is circulating into your body doesn't carry enough of those oxygen. Then you collapse. For a moment, and you will see, you will lie there, people will give some. Breathe. So work again, breathe again, because you got calm. If such things happen, if you are so worried, you are so anxious, simple technique is blow a brown pepper.
Okay.
Just take it and take a deep breath and out, in and out, in and out. It will calm you down.
I've only seen that in the movies.
No, I thought like
No, it works.
I forget, you know,
Yeah.
but year 7s, it really
Yeah.
works.
It works. It
Yeah.
works in real life.
Yeah,
It does
yeah.
work.
Now, for the sake of time, Doc, we know that, as you said, you have only for a limited time. I want us to move to schizophrenia
Okay.
as a mental illness.
Yes.
Because I think a lot, and like, we were talking about this, me and Kanye,
I think it was last week.
it was last week.
Yeah.
We're talking about people that are, if you see them, people on the street, that are not in
Drugs. They're not abusing
they're
drugs.
not abusing drugs, but they're not in a good
Mental state.
state,
Yeah.
right? And we almost kind of did our own, like, prognosis or diagnosis on like those people. Like, okay, no man, maybe that person has a form of schizophrenia.
So you are starting to diagnose people.
It's like,
dangerous, man.
because then you think,
They're
oh man, like,
dangerous.
this is not drug use.
Yeah.
You don't see, because you need to have money to be able to get access to drugs.
Yeah.
And then you see some people, they just, it's like,
They're
maybe,
not dangerous.
yeah, maybe it's not drug abuse. Maybe it's something else. And I don't know if that's possible. That's why we decided to bring it on.
Schizoaffective disorder are not drug abuse. It's not drug-induced psychosis type of disorder. It's a type of psychotic disorder, but it's a broad spectrum. Even the schizophrenia itself, it has got different types of schizophrenia.
Yep.
But to come up with a diagnosis of schizophrenia, you need 5 criteria. 5.
All right.
For the doctor to say this patient is having schizophrenia.
Okay.
The patient should have delusion. The patient should have hallucination.
Okay.
He should be disorganized, totally disorganized, especially in his thinking. And sometimes the patient should have negative symptoms.
Such
as
Negative symptoms are like absence symptoms. Let's start by the delusion. The first one I gave. I will give a bit of
points, yes.
in everything. Delusional, now a schizophrenic patient can think. There are different types of schizophrenia. There are grandiose schizophrenia, where patient believe. The delusion is a belief, a firm belief, which is different from the reality.
okay.
You see the schizophrenic, they live in their own world. They are there, you are there, they don't see you. They just pass. They wander. They speak to themselves.
Okay.
Some of them believe they've got power.
Yeah.
Some of them, they can even tell you that I am meeting the president. And you look the way he's wearing, you wonder.
Charlie.
They're meeting the president.
Yeah.
So they believe, they've got that firm belief that they've got superpower, or they can heal somebody, or they've got a calling.
Wow.
So can we, yeah, because I was going to get to that. So can we then agree then that schizophrenia is just as common as, or not just, maybe not equally as common as
But it is
depression
common.
and as anxiety
It
disorders?
is,
But it's
very
very
common.
Because I know if by the symptoms Doc just mentioned,
That is only one part, on the delusion part.
yeah.
Okay.
They also have hallucination. They should have hallucination.
Okay.
Hallucination is, they can have 2 types of hallucination: listening to voices or seeing things. You see, these are perceptions. Sitting with them, you will see, he will tell you, you see snakes crawling up, and you are there, you don't see it. Those are visual hallucination. In case of schizophrenia, what is more common type of hallucination is auditory hallucination. They will tell you that they hear a voice, they heard the grandma who passed away came and told them this.
Yes. And that's
true.
Just the reason why I brought up schizophrenia is because we do not talk about that. We do not hear about it in our communities. And then the first thing we think, if somebody's like that, oh no,
He's
he's bewitched. You understand? We're just like, no, this person is bewitched. We don't know what he's seen or where he's gone to or who he's walking with, and that's the common diagnosis in the community. Yeah, witchcraft.
You will see most of the schizophrenic patients will be wandering. They are talking to themselves because they are living in their own world. They are not in contact with reality. That is the schizophrenia. They are disorganized. They are dirty, disorganized. They are even disorganized in their thinking. When they start talking to you, okay, you are asking them a question, there is flight of idea. Their mind is jumping. They can go from one subject to another one, kind of satellite type of thinking. You can start asking about the name. He's giving you, he's talking about food, and there is a derailment on their thinking. There is no link.
I had an encounter with someone who was schizophrenic, someone very close. He'd come into the room and he'd be, you know what, it's very dark. But then Kusemini, it's light, it's daylight. Like, you know what, it's very, very dark. But when you have the conversation with the person, he's having a normal conversation. He knows who you are, he knows what you're doing. But then you'll be like, you know what, I have a calling. And we didn't know. We were like, you know what, let's call him a pastor, let's call in people. And we were there, we were praying, man. Every day. And it was okay for some days. But jiggy, back to reality, until we took him to the doctor. Like, no, you know what, this person is diagnosed with.
That is where it's become challenging with our belief and mental illnesses.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, the sangomas.
Yes.
If you've got a brother or a sister who starts hearing voices, seeing things, one can jump into conclusion. It is, you see, that's why it's dangerous to not diagnose people. It can be a true calling. I'm not saying all that as schizophrenia. Don't take me wrong.
I understand because they could not qualify for all four of the factors that they need.
Exactly. So they should be seen by a professional, a doctor, not by somebody on the street who heard on the radio they were talking about schizophrenia, then they start diagnosing everyone who is passing. No. If there is a mental issue, they should be seen by a professional, a doctor who knows which criteria to look for and come up with a diagnosis.
Doctor, this is now a very interesting question that I want to ask. Can someone be schizophrenic and not be disorganized? Like, who clean? Because I watched this movie, I'm just going to make a summary of it. This person was also studying to be a doctor. But during his study phase, he usually had two people always working with him, talking to him. He was an investigative officer called by the highest police form, and then he had to solve some cases up until he was taken to a mental institution. You know what? So he had to train himself or his brain that, you know what, these people are not sane. You're not here, you're not part of my life, you're not part of my life. But he was clean, he was washing, he was doing everything, but he was schizophrenic. Is it possible?
It is possible because, as I told you, when we are talking about schizophrenia, it's a wide spectrum of diseases.
Okay.
There are schizotypal disease. Somebody will have some traits of schizophrenia without having the full package.
Okay.
You have those situations. There are very serious conditions where the schizophrenic, when I spoke about having some negative thought, a patient who's totally catatonic, those who you see them on the streets, some of them, they don't even speak, they just stand like a pole. You see them standing like a pole, they can stand there for 4 hours without doing anything.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
But those are extreme cases.
Yeah.
But they are in between, case by case, where you can have somebody with certain traits, we call it personality. you can call it some schizophrenic personality there. That person can, every time it's pop out, exhibit those symptoms you are mentioning.
Excuse me for chuckling, because I think I know the movie that you're talking about. I'm not sure if it's the same one.
It is.
It probably
I
is.
think it's Mel Gibson or something.
Yes, it's a Mel Gibson movie.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, so like I said, the other thing that I wanted to talk about, and we spoke about this last week, it was also a movie that we saw.
Yeah.
It was called Split. Now, they talk about personality disorders as also as a mental illness. So can we dig in about like
split personality
about that as well? Yeah, what are personality disorders? And is split personality a real thing, or is it just a fictional thing? But
not everything you watch on the movies are real.
Oh, but
They're a bit of exaggeration, but there are many different personality disorders. The certain type of personality disorder is like aggressive personality disorder.
okay.
Somebody in his personality is aggressive. Like defiant behavior disorder, it starts in young age. A child you are trying to educate is not following your order. It's a disorder. It's a personality disorder.
And that's a mental illness.
It's a mental illness.
Oh, okay. So being rude is actually
being rude in a certain point on excessive. It's a mental that if the best place you can find information is the DSM-5. You'll see they classify all that. Most of these broad spectrum case of autism, it's a type of personality disorder. They are calm, they are not associating with other people. It's a type of personality disorder. On other extreme, they are very calm, quiet, they don't want to mingle with other people, they are focused on what they are doing, but they are also extreme type of personality disorder. They have a violent conduct disorder. People who are beating their partners like crazy.
It's a mental illness. It's a mental illness.
So in personality disorder, you've got a lot. So
what are the causes, Doc? Like the most prominent causes? Can it be abuse? Can it be
those who have been? Yes, there's no cause but risk factors, as I can say.
Okay.
Most of those personality disorders or mental illnesses, it's difficult to really pinpoint what caused it. But there are associations, what we call risk factors. A person who has been abused in his age or witness abuses can become an abuser and develop that behavior, that personality.
If it's not diagnosed or treated.
And some gene plays a role as well. Yeah.
Wow, so we can't we're actually just freelancing life out here, like bungee jumping without a rope, because if it's in your genetics, then there's really nothing that you can do
if it's in
to prevent it from happening.
Yeah, there are people who have got some silly personality disorder you're a colleague of yours who works and steals the type of personality disorder.
Kleptomania.
Yeah.
Not necessarily kleptomania. That is a type of personality disorder, but with a specific. You understand?
Yeah.
So there's a broad.
There's a lot.
Can we get before it can we get to pedophilia?
Oh, okay.
What is
pedophilia?
Is it also mental illness caused by?
Pedophilia is one of the mental illnesses where an adult or old adolescent has got tendency to love prepubescent children.
What do we define children? What is the
children
definition
in
of
South
children?
Africa, anyone who is below 13 years old is a child.
Yeah.
Okay.
Above 13 years old is
Adolescent.
Adolescent.
Is adolescent. So now, these pedophile people, they like those who are below the 12, the 11, and the stuff. Now there are risk factor or other comorbidities which are associated. There is no, up to now, according to what I've read on the DSM-5, they didn't pinpoint yet what is causing them to like children or babies or whatever. But most of these people are having other mental illnesses, like your depression, your anxiety, the personality disorder, people who are liking even child pornography. It's part of the paraphilia or pedophilia.
So say now you are at the age of 30 or 28 and you love someone who is about 15, 14, that's not pedophilia because the person is not under 12 years old.
Yes, in terms of definition of pedophilia, it's not pedophilia.
It's not. So it must be
but that is if you refer to the law, you're supposed not to love a 15 years old.
But it's
not
not
in the definition
of pedophilia.
I think it's about the infancy. I think that's the disorder. It's about finding attraction
towards
this pedo, like, you know,
someone
like
is really
a child, pediatric. Okay, so but wow, that's yay. Lawyers and doctors would have a fight the entire night. They would have a debate the entire day because, you know, I know.
You know, we can always organize because now we are taking them all together. But maybe in the future we should be taking one
by one.
We go deeper in it. We look at all the aspects. Then to give more clarity. So today it was the first time we touch here, touch there. But maybe we'll start going deeper in one by one. And also probably gives people some time to ask questions while we are online.
Yes. Thank you so much. I'm very happy to hear about future engagements, possible future engagements. That means that Doc is having a nice time here with us, and Doc would like to return. We would like to have you back.
Remember, Cancer Awareness Month.
Exactly,
so we're having a doctor here to talk about the different cancers and all that.
Yes, it's just a matter of preparing and telling in advance. So we can,
and so before we leave, we've run out of time. What message do you have to the youth in particular and to the general public
with regards to mental illness?
Well, what I have to tell to the general public when it comes to mental illnesses is that mental illnesses is part of life. There is no shame of disclosing it to your close relative and for seeking help, especially for the youth. Because the study I mentioned, which was done in Pretoria, when I say Pretoria, it's South Africa, so it can also be done here, we might find the same results. People are suffering in secret. And people are not seeking help, which is not right. That is why you will see the rate of people killing themselves. Suicide is high within the youth. And since I'm in Priska, I think I've heard 3 or 4 people jumping off the bridge. And we don't know what happened. What if those young person who decided to terminate their life that way could have sought help in time and could have been assisted? That could not have happened. So mental illness is not a secret. We should not take it, we should not give it a special place. It's like you are having a headache, you are having heart problem, you are having stomach problem, you are also having lung problem, you are having mental problem. You are not coping with life, you are not coping at school, at work, you can't control your emotions, go and seek help to a professional. Talk to a professional who can assist you and guide you appropriately. And that will assist, especially the youth during this month.
Great stuff.
Amazing
Great stuff.
Amazing.
We have run out of time, unfortunately. Would have loved to have more time, but like we said, in future. Ladies and gentlemen at home, we will be taking a brief, short ad break. And remember, for those of you who would like to make use of our advertising platform, do contact us via our WhatsApp line. You will find our WhatsApp number on Facebook. Send us a message and we'll get back to you with a quote.
Thank you, Dr. Mampuya.
Dr. Mampuya in the house. Thank you so much.
It was a pleasure, my
you.
pleasure to be part of this. I hope we'll
Definitely.
see you again.
Definitely.
I think we did destigmatize and define, even though Doc said it's a broad perspective, so we can't really go into everything, but next time definitely we're going into it.
Yeah, I'm also glad that he was open to the idea that we should have him on the show again.
Yeah,
discuss one specific topic because he's also a talker.
Yeah,
I like
you are
that.
and sense of humor.
Right? I like that about him.
I'm gonna, before we close, I do want to ask, have you ever felt depressed or faced any mental illness? And what did you do? Because we're now destigmatizing, we're now talking about it.
No, I don't mind talking about it. I'll destigmatize it. You know, it's like you have to lead by example. No, I did fall into a state of depression once, and that was primarily the reason why I moved back home.
Okay.
Back in 2018. It was after I'd been. I don't want to say that I took on too much responsibility, but you do have that sense of self-worth that just kind of goes down with all of the expectations that you have around you.
Sure.
And these are expectations that you create by yourself. You understand? Like, you're not being told, listen, you need to be the brightest, you need to be the smartest. But
it also comes with growing up. For some people,
exactly.
it's the environment. Though.
Yeah, and so what I did about it was I did seek help. I studied at the University of the Free State.
Okay.
You know, alma mater. and there's Coffee Health.
Okay.
And I knew a friend who was working at the office.
Sure.
And it was easier for me to go there because I had a good relationship with her.
Okay.
And she actually explained it to me, and I asked her, like, you know, how do you... At first I was like, you know, I just want information for my students, because at the time I was prime. And I just want, you know...
And there was stigma around it, so you didn't want to really come out.
Out.
You know what, this is how I'm feeling. This is what I'm going through.
Yes. And so, but she kind of figured it out, because I guess that's very common.
Yeah.
Like, you know, people probably ask her about, like, you know, that type of thing. And then she was like, no, just come, like, you can just come there by me. And she answered me, it was like, as if she was talking to the supposed students that I want to help. And she's like, no, you can just come there, work off health and whatnot. This is what we do. It is quite expensive. I do think that is also kind of like a limiting or constraint when it comes to how you manage it, like how you plan, how you to fix this thing. It's really expensive.
Remember, Doc said it's the doctor, it's the psychologist.
Yeah.
You need a lot of people.
Yeah.
To assist you in overcoming this condition.
Exactly.
So it is expensive.
It's very expensive, and I really wish that our government could pour a lot more resources into it, because they do exist, but I mean, there's how many millions of us out there without medical aid, and even if you do have medical aid, your medical aid is bound to be
exhausted by the end of the journey.
Yes,
definitely.
And then you have other things that you also might want to use the medical aid for.
I do want to ask a question that is really, because sometimes in clinic, because our parents don't really know what we go through.
Yes.
And they literally just say, "Hi, moods. Hi, Nikki space. Hi, you know, there's a lot." Who still say that? So how did you make sure that you broke the news to your parents or people at home without them having certain type of behavior towards you? And what did you do? How did you feel?
Well, it's one of the things that you mentioned, right? Is having a good support structure, and that is what I really had, because they could pick up that I was not really myself anymore, like, because we were a very close family, and I had a conversation with my brother.
Okay.
And then he was actually, you know, we were just sitting, chilling, just talking. And then, you know, kind of explained it to him. Yeah, obviously it was a tough conversation to be held, but they were very understanding. They were not, these things that I was so afraid that they might say.
They did not say it.
They didn't say it. I didn't even get a sense that they felt it even.
Okay.
I just felt that thing of, they didn't feel sorry for me, which I really appreciated, because I did not want
anyone to feel sorry.
Sorry for me. I had my cousin, Graham, everybody knows I'm very close with him.
Yeah.
He was one also to help me in that very dark time.
Sure.
And you know what the funny thing is that when it comes to depression, you know, it also, like, there's a side effect, I want to say side effect, but there's an after effect of it, that you forget so much that happens during that time. You forget a lot of things. Like, really. Like, it's some kind of like amnesia that comes with it as well. Because remember, you're not yourself.
Yeah,
and you're sick. And like you mentioned, the brain is an organ.
Sure.
Right? So it's still that hit that it took, you understand? And so that's, I'm kind of glad
you fight.
Yeah.
You fought, in fact.
Yeah, and that's the thing, because my cousin told me this thing. So just give yourself a fighting chance. You understand?
Sure.
Like, all of these things that are happening, yes, sure, they're happening. We're not dismissing it. But also remember, give yourself a fighting chance.
Sure.
Just be there, and that, if I could, I would give that advice to people. But obviously, I'm not a professional. He's not a professional in the field. But that was just from a family standpoint, you know, support system. I'm thankful to my mom, my brothers, and to the large extent of the family.
Thank you for sharing your story.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
I don't talk about it a lot, because, you know, people don't want to hear that. You know.
Yeah, like I said, Dr. Mampuya said, we have to talk about this because it's still stigmatized.
Yes.
And some people still take them as, ooh, it's sensitive. Don't talk about it. It's a sensitive you know, so we need to have this conversation, especially as a youth, to say, you know what, I know you're not okay, but you're gonna overcome it.
Yeah.
I know you're still battling with some things, but you're gonna get through it. You're gonna get through it. You just need a support system. You just need to go get diagnosis. You just need, you know, people
the
right environment. And then talking about environment, do you think work environment can really trigger a depression?
Did you not live stream that council meeting today? I was like, that is so toxic. That is so toxic. How can you not walk out there get depression after serving? And that's why
I thought he was gonna laugh about it because it's a serious thing.
It's you know, we joke about these things, but they're very serious. It's not funny, but I mean,
there are people who, like, I've seen videos on TikTok of people who literally quit the jobs because, you know what, work environment is toxic.
Yes.
And they're gonna fall into depression, or people who do fall into depression because of the work environment.
Yeah, I know of people that literally just did not even have a plan. They're just like, you know what, screw this, I'm leaving. You know, like I said, if you can get yourself out of the environment, you're giving yourself a fighting chance. You understand? You move away from the environment that created, because I think that is also a risk factor.
It is.
You understand?
It definitely is.
Like, working environment can be very toxic, especially if you're working in highly competitive environments where you are judged based on only your performance instead of your work ethic. You understand?
Yeah.
Or, you know, different things.
Or like in the council meeting, like
you see, right? And I mean, like, and this is not even to mock the councillors, right?
It's not.
For me, I'm genuinely, because these are people, right? Like, I'm genuinely concerned. I'm genuinely concerned about their well-being, because I mean, if there is such a lack of exposure in front of so many people, that means that you are not appreciating the environment that you're in, which means you're a bit disorganized. You understand? That's not normal. That's not normal.
And the sad part is, you go back home, you go sit with the after effects of what happened.
Exactly.
So that's when everything gets triggered. So we need to work on these things. We need to address these things. It's gonna be a bit sensitive along the way, but it needs to be done, because we need to talk about things that are happening in the community.
Yeah.
That we see.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And you know, they like, I'm sure they have a lot of pressure, because I can't imagine what it is being a public servant or holding public office. You know, so many people have access to you, and there's so many expectations.
Sure.
Some justified, some very ludicrous. You understand? But yet there are expectations that people that's pressure that people put on you. You understand? But
catch us next week, guys. We do want you to comment. We do want you to interact. We do want you to share your comments. We want you to share the content. This is the power of conversation. So we want to trigger conversations, and conversations that are very uncomfortable, so that we can speak about those things.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, you know, it's a privilege, it's a blessing.
It is.
To be able to talk about these things,
sure.
Right? To be able to gather in one space and have our freedom of movement, our freedom of speech.
Sure.
The things that people fought for, people died for, you know, we should appreciate it. And, you know, because if you don't appreciate it, if you don't use it, you'll lose it.
Yeah, it's also Happy Pride Month.
Oh yeah, yes, I wanted to,
And one of the things that do also lead to mental illness, it's not being able to come out, or the stigma around pride.
Yeah, about
sexuality. So
that I want to speak. I'm so glad you touched on that. Happy Pride Month, everyone.
Happy.
I like the fact that there's a month, you know, dedicated to people being able to express themselves freely and not, you know, it's
identity, part of who they are.
It's identity, you know, it's liberating, it's a movement. It happens. But throughout the year, we should not like, how can I put this?
Discriminate,
and disregard people's rights.
Or any rights,
Because those
goes with the right.
it goes with the rights. It's a human right to be able to love who you want to, or not love who you don't. Because there are people that are very asexual. Right?
So we have a lot going on this month. This is the Youth Month. This is the Pride Month. This is Father's Month, because Father's Day is, I don't know which day, so we are going to also be touching
about that.
issues.
We have to. That's such a double entendre anyway. But yeah, to the youth out there, man, like, I just want to, especially for you as an educator, I'm sure you probably feel like you have an obligation or a bigger role to play when it comes to shaping the young minds of our society. I want people to hang in there. It gets better. You understand? It gets better.
See you next week, guys.
Yes. And thank you for tuning in. This is the Power of Conversation.
Bye.
Bye.